GM, Ford, and Chrysler beg Washington for a bailout. Their financial pain is felt around the world. But are other nations' automakers leaving Detroit in the slow lane? Next on Global Pulse, a comparison of how these broadcasters covered the crisis in the automotive industry. Soaring gasoline prices fueled a major shift among car buyers. Small is in and big is out. Detroit's big three suddenly find their financial gears stuck in reverse, as Al Jazeera, CNN Español, and SABC report.
Three American vehicle manufacturers, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, have been in the hot seat on Capitol Hill.
The car companies affirm that if the government does not save them, their bankruptcy will affect the economy.
Millions of workers will lose their jobs, not just in the U.S., but in plants in countries as diverse as Britain, Brazil, and China.
Detroit's financial trouble rippled around the world. NHK, Russia Today, Deutsche Welle, and KBS each focused on the impact in their regions.
Some of GM Daewoo's factories will be closed next month. Hyundai and Kia Motors have suspended the openings of their factories in Brazil.
The global economic crisis has had a huge negative impact on the Japanese auto industry. Toyota has 6,000 temporary workers, but is going to lay off 3,000 of them by next March.
In Latin America, close to 30,000 people work in the production of vehicles for General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler.
In Santa Fe province, General Motors laid off 435 workers. The Auto Workers Union members protested on the streets of Buenos Aires.
Meanwhile, here in Germany, carmaker Opel is also considering measures to cut production.
Back in the U.S., the CEOs of GM, Chrysler, and Ford took a road trip to Washington to prove they were finally on the right path.
Lesson learned when it comes to public relations. Determined to convince wary lawmakers, they learned bigger lessons.
But international broadcasters, including the BBC and South Asia Newsline, reported on automakers miles ahead of Detroit. In Brazil and India, small, cheap, and green was the name of the game.
The most anticipated car will be the much-hyped $2,500 People's Car from Tata Motors. India's second-largest bike maker Bajaj Auto 2 is in the fray to corner the small car market, as it unveiled the concept of its small car Lite on Tuesday. Likely to be priced around $3,000, Bajaj has also roped in French car maker Renault to undertake a feasibility study for partnership in the small car project.
For the past 3 years, 100% of cars rolling off the production lines here at GM in Brazil have been flex fuel. It means they can run on any combination of ethanol or conventional gasoline. Many motorists are choosing to fill up with ethanol. The recent huge growth of flex fuel cars has boosted demand to new heights.
Even luxury automaker BMW got the small message.
For the time being, California is the only place you can catch sight of this all-electric Mini. The plan is to put 500 of these cars on the road in Los Angeles and New York for a one-year trial.
I think that especially in times like these, when we're facing a financial crisis, it's important to have a glimpse of the future, to see how things might look when this is over.
GM's glimpse forward was to Russia, where it was willing to spend money it didn't have for a slice of a lucrative market.
Automaker General Motors has opened a new $300 million car assembly plant in St. Petersburg. The factory will create 1,700 jobs, but growth in the Russian auto sector is already starting to slow.
GM, whose sales in the US are the lowest in 25 years, expects Russia to become the largest market in Europe.
It's still going to be a growth market, and it's still going to be very important for any player to be here in Russia.
But will the big three remain players in the U.S., or will automakers from other nations end up in the driver's seat? For Global Pulse, I'm Erin Coker.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only US network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.